it's important to understand like where you're going and like what's important to you, and also letting go of all of that baggage of like where you think you need to be because you set this life up when you were 16 years old of this is what I was going to be and do and have. And like I think as you grow and evolve, that changes fucking immensely. And like so what is truly important to you today in your life, and what's truly important to you like with what you want out of the next 3 to 5 years or whatever, and that I think changes things to where you can have more contentment with the process.
How do you find the will to fight back against a world that wants to keep you sedated, average, and stuck in place? Join us for the tools and strategies you need to create a life of abundance, discipline, and high achievement. This is the Tactical Empire with Jeff Smith.
Welcome to another edition of the Tactical Empire. I'm here with Sean. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. It is the time of year where Winchester, Virginia shines the brightest. We host, I think it's called the largest festival on the East Coast. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's pretty damn big. It's called the Apple Blossom Festival. It's what Winchester, Virginia is known for, but it is a whole week of downtown being half shut down for most of the week and then fully shut down for 2 days, which will be this coming weekend. But basically just giving adults the okay to go to wine festivals and sports luncheons to get hammered on a Wednesday midday. And well, I don't even know this guy. I don't go to the events, but big fireman's parade on Friday coming up after kids run a mile. And then Saturday morning is the 10K for the adults, which is always nice because it's like 8:30 in the morning. So you got all these people that were gung-ho about signing up for 10K a couple months ago, but they stayed out too late the night before. So they look like death as they run this 10K. I am not running it this year. My wife is. I ran it last year. We've been on this alternating kick the past couple of years. I don't want to run 10K, so we're good. But yeah, it's a busy time of week. A lot of excitement, a lot of pink and green are the colors for Apple Blossom. So Winchester, Virginia, if you're nearby, come on down. We got a cool parade this Saturday.
What is an apple blossom? Is it a food or a flower?
Yeah, it's a flower. Yeah, it's a pretty pink flower. So all the trees have bloomed already. So there's some pink trees downtown. And then what they do, like 3 weeks leading up to Apple Blossom, they'll go and I don't know if it's the full 10K track, but it's basically the main road downtown. They'll spray paint apple blossoms onto the road like every maybe 20 yards. So you got these big pink apple blossoms with the green leaves spray painted on the road. So it's cool. Like when I first moved here, I was like, this is silly. It's way too many people. It's hot as shit for this parade. But now that I got young kids, it's you take your kids to the parade, fireman's parade, and then some of my kids' friends live in the older, larger homes down here downtown. So they invite people over, you sit on their lawn. So it's a whole ordeal, but that's what we're dealing with, Jeff.
I love it. I love it, man.
Traditions
are big. Traditions are big.
Yeah, go ahead.
What'd you say? Sorry.
I said, what's going on with you?
Oh man, nothing. I'm hopefully going to have 3 amazing things happen to me this week. I'm hopefully going to close on a storage facility. I'm hopefully going to close on my house. I'm hopefully going to close on a big ass 7-figure refinance as well. And so this is the culmination week of like 18 months of teeth kicking, my teeth getting kicked in.
Yeah.
But lots of good shit has happened. Like this is great. Like we're finally reaping the benefits for a bunch of work I've done that was painful to do.
Sure.
And so it's good, man. I'm super happy, super excited. Lots of good shit happening. We're heading out we're probably got 2 more weeks in Houston. We'll stay here and get some stuff done. We've got to get a washer and dryer installed in our RV. We've got to get some shit done to my truck. And then we're heading to, I don't even know, Jekyll Island and some other island off the coast of Georgia. And so
they're gonna go tear down the Federal Reserve. where it was created, apparently, on your
No.
first trip.
If I could go there and unwind the Federal Reserve, I would be all over that.
And this is where the downfall of real money occurred, right here in this chair on Jekyll Island. So awesome, man. Well, that kind of falls into today's topic. You kind of just mentioned 18 months of getting your teeth kicked in, but anyone that knows you, anyone that follows you is like, you've had milestones, you've had wins, you celebrate your wins all throughout. And I made a post on Facebook the other day, a quote, which I took from an Instagram video that I think was quoting Alex Hormozy. So I'll give credit to where I think it came from. And the quote was, "You've already achieved goals you said would make you happy." Someone commented on it, high achiever. I don't know if he's a high W-2 income earner or entrepreneur, but basically just said, like, contentment is a B word. And then he kind of commented again. So let me clarify. Finding contentment is my struggle. So this is a gentleman like identifying that contentment is where he's struggling. I will accomplish something, then say, now what? So I think a lot of us can relate to that. If you Google the definition of contentment, it's just a state of satisfaction, a state of happiness. And we don't need to get into the debate on like whether happiness is what we're actually trying to achieve or contentment. I think people can take these words a million different ways, but how do you kind of navigate the world of challenging yourself, growing yourself, accomplishing goals, and actually acknowledging that you accomplish a goal without just by default turning to the next goal, which, for people that visualize things, like it's really just extending the finish line over and over and over again. And so like you're running this race that you never finish, but if you run a race that you never finish, like that can be very damning and drowning and make people tiresome. So how do you navigate that and take that question wherever you want to take it? But how would you navigate working someone through the challenge of never feeling content or always moving the finish line without acknowledging their progress?
This is one of those that I would tell you evolves with your age, I feel like, and maturity. Because I definitely was the guy that was like, okay, what's next? And I still am but I accept it differently and I view it differently. Because I mean, ultimately, as humans, we are wired for achievement. Like that is what we are put on this planet to do. With the gap that I never could fill in my 20s and 30s was always that, like, this truly is the game, and it's an infinite game. And so when you talk about moving the finish line over and over again, there is no finish line. And like that's it. Like, and the funny thing, when you were talking, I was laughing because I was thinking about Bonnie, the therapist. Yeah. Bonnie, because she used to bitch at me all the time about this and say that inside conversations that I was always like pushing too hard, and that I was never content from an external person viewing me in her professional opinion. And I would say that was true 10 years ago. And I would say it's not true now, because I have reframed like what I'm doing and why. And I would say, if you asked me when I was 35 years old, 34 years old, whatever, what I was doing, I always thought I was going to hit this eventual home run. And I was like, as soon as I do this and like get that, as soon as I do this deal where I'm going to net $1 million, it's going to change my life, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow, it's going to be different. And I had enough of those wins in my 30s where and then like what happens is you have this expectation that like once I make $200,000 or once I make $100,000, let's take it backwards. Once I get to 6 figures, like then I'm not going to have a care in the world. All my problems are going to be gone. Then you get there and you're like, fuck, man, this is just regular. Like life still sucks. But what happens, and it happened to me at least, I don't know, I think it happens to most people that I talk to, is that like that's the recipe for like real full on like depression. Because you say, when you do this and you bust your ass and work and work and work, and then when the day comes, you get to the closing table, you do this, you start the business, you get the girl, you do whatever. Like it doesn't fill that void the way you thought it was going to. And then it rattles you. For me, it was super disruptive for me because like I thought I like didn't know shit. I'm like, man, I keep on doing these things that I think I'm supposed to be doing and achieving this or whatever, this next thing, and then like, but I still feel like shit or whatever. I still nothing's changing for me. I'm not happier. I'm not more content, whatever. And like my perception on this has changed in the 10 years that I'm talking about into a reframing of like, this is it. And like the gratification and the fulfillment is in the work that you're doing to do the next thing, if you will. And having reframed and understanding that has changed my perspective. And I'm still just as hungry as I always was. I'm still optimist. I'm still like an eternal optimist. I'm still out there like willing to take on any deal, look at any deal, take a risk on really anything that I think makes a lot of sense. And so from that perspective, it hasn't changed at all. But just internally, I'm far happier because I understand that things are moving at the pace that they're gonna move regardless, and I can only control the way I show up in each and every action and activity and interaction I have. And so that's kind of the perspective that has changed for me. Because of the reframing of the thought process. So this person that commented that, like they're still feeling the negativity of the lack of change or fucking fireworks and shit. When when he reaches that goal, it's not what he thought it was going to be. So you probably just need to reframe your expectations and understand that like this is it. The beauty is in the work, not the result.
Yeah, we joke that let's just use when you become a millionaire for the first time, there's no like AARP type VIP membership to that club that gets you access to anything. Like it literally changes nothing. And I wouldn't say that I'm in the thick of that change in my life right now, but I can relate to a lot that you said, and I don't think there's any perfect answer. But the things that I've gotten better at is recognizing that my level of happiness or contentment really just comes down to the Monday day-to-day things that I'm doing and the way that I'm acting, whether that's to myself or to other people, predominantly my family, and the people that I come in contact with through my businesses on a daily basis. As a young entrepreneur and a fire breather, so to speak, like I was so hungry that it was at the detriment of humility and people smart. To go back, by the way, those two values come from The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni, which I just reread a month ago for the first time in a couple of years. And like just looking through that again, it kind of helped me solidify that I have grown in the areas that I was lacking a couple years ago. I still struggle with certain things, of course. But the things that I've gotten really good at is just being okay with the way that I'm presenting myself to the world, to myself. I've always been good at keeping my word to myself, but I think I've overpromised other people at times in my life, and haven't upheld my word as a young entrepreneur. And so that's one thing that I'm really strong on recognizing. And it doesn't have to be anything huge, but like, for example, I told my wife yesterday, we have an electric weed whacker and I was mowing. So she decided to weed whack the garden so we could clear it out. And the battery died. I said, hey, I'll do it tomorrow. And of course I got home from my workout this morning and the last thing I wanted to do was get the weed whacker out and get covered in grass. And before I moved on with my day, I was like, no, Sean, like you told her you're going to do it. So effing do it. Whereas, a couple years ago, or even maybe a couple months ago, I would have just pushed it to tomorrow because my day's a little bit more open tomorrow. But I think part of the things that we're talking about here is like, if your validation is coming from something external, it's not going to happen. Like, so whether you're maybe viewing life as a race is the pitfall. Maybe viewing business as war is a pitfall. Because again, like you said, it's an infinite game. So I like the reframe was there's no finish line. Like there's no victor in the war of business. Are you really trying to make your competitors go out of business? Like, I think the people listening to this podcast would say no. Like, other people that might listen to someone else, they might, hell yeah, like we're here to destroy everyone. Like, but is that really what life is? Like, is really life about going out and brutally destroying your company? I don't think that's it. The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek talks about having a rival, not a competitor. Like a rival should make you better. But you should just be happy with, how you're presenting, the daily habits that you have. And if you're not happy, maybe it is because you're not looking internally. And I think on another episode, I talked about the difference between Ryan Holiday is the obstacle is the way and ego is the enemy. Yeah, if you only read the obstacle is the way, you might find that, I'm just going to keep tackling these obstacles because my contentment and happiness and victory will be found once I get over this hurdle, and come to find out that it's not there. So then you have to read ego is the enemy, and ego is the enemy is the one that was a gut punch to me that really made me think like, oh shit, Sean, you're not happy and content because like you're not happy with how you are in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to, I mean, this is probably, people are going to roll their eyes and think this is stupid, but like it goes back to our nature. Our nature is about like we're animals and we're pack animals. And so when you talk about business, I think I look at business as collaborative competition. And because it is fucking rough out there. And there are people trying to fucking take you out. And I'm not overplaying it, but so it is competitive by nature, but I think we find contentment in the collaboration part of things because we want to partner with people. We want to do well by people. We want to set up win-win scenarios. So like I can buy something from you that helps you out, and through that asset acquisition, you get the money you need or whatever, right? And I think the problem with where people get discontent is it's that period of time when you're younger. I keep saying age. I don't know that it matters. That's just from my experience. This is how I behaved when I was 20 to 35 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you were chasing. I was always chasing, and it set itself up for, okay, I hit the next finish line. And now that wasn't fast enough or whatever it was. I didn't get the feeling that I needed. And then I was chasing the next thing. And what happens is that leads you into a bunch of bad decisions. And it leads you into bad decisions about business. It leads you into bad decisions about, like, I don't know, a lot of other things. And what I mean by that is you find yourself taking on something because, oh, okay, I thought I could make the income that I wanted to or reach the milestone that I wanted to by taking on this position, job, or business. And then you're doing something every single day that you fucking hate because you're trying to chase some sort of accolade or milestone or money in the bank account. And what you're doing is you're participating daily in miserable activities because you're trying to reach something, some superficial thing in most cases, a superficial milestone. And so kind of what you're talking about and what I feel like I've settled into in my life is understanding that like what brings me joy and what brings me ultimately more money is like behaving in integrity constantly, like, because then you're fulfilled. You don't have that feeling of anxiety because you did what you said you were going to do on a regular basis every single time. And like you tell your wife you're going to weed eat, right? Yeah. That's hard to do in your relationship because you say a lot of shit. You run your mouth a lot of times. It's not as hard to do in business because you don't talk to people as much, but It's just as important at home as it is in business because it builds confidence in you. And like when you go to bed at night, you sleep soundly because you did everything you said you were going to do that day, right? And like when you start eroding those values or that integrity, it starts planting those seeds of anxiety. That's the shit that wakes you up at night. That's when you don't sleep well. And also, if you're chasing, you take on opportunities that might not be great fits. And I say this all the time to everybody, like you don't want to build yourself a cage. Like that is the definition in my mind. When I say that all the time, it's when you're chasing something and you walk yourself down a path of misery to get an end result that you think you want, but it's generally a superficial result. Like, I will eat shit for fucking 3 years to make $1 million, and 2 years and 3 months into eating shit, you realize that this is really, really terrible, and I don't know how important $1 million really is. Right? Like, I just think that, like, it's the byproduct of that realization that, like, happiness or contentment is derived from actually just the integrity of what you're doing on a regular basis and how you represent yourself. And then what it does is it magnifies and manifests itself into whatever you want. You become a money magnet, you become a happiness magnet, you become a social butterfly if that's what you intend to do. Like, the things just start becoming attracted to you once you start behaving, like letting go of all those like preconceived notions of like what you were supposed to do because your parents told you that, or whatever, or your friends told you that, or and start behaving in integrity with yourself first of all, and like being the human being that you're supposed to be. Then everything else starts becoming magnetic to you that you actually desire.
Yeah, I think there's value also in acknowledging that as a human, it's really hard for us to actually clearly identify the emotions that we're having. And this is something that I'm big on now. Like, I'm allowed to have more than one feeling at one time, right? Like, I can feel that I'm pretty happy with my life while acknowledging that I'm struggling in this so-and-so area. But I've been able to do that because I've acknowledged that these other things aren't actually a representation of my value to the world. The amount of money in my bank account isn't a definition value on who I am to my kids. Obviously gives us ability to do certain things, but my kids aren't asking that question. And they're not saying, Daddy, oh, you made less this month, so you're worthless to us. That's not how it goes. And so I've had to learn that and acknowledge that. That it's not a either or. It's you can be happy that you can only be happy about things you've accomplished if you've acknowledged that you've accomplished shit. If you look back and actually recognize, oh, that's where I was, and now that's where I am. This is where I am now, even though I've had this imaginary finish line that I'm still striving for, even though I know I'm trying to progress. I'm doing good. I'm on the right path. Life isn't linear. My bank account's not linear. My income may not be linear. My feeling of happiness may not be constant and linear. And we talked down at the Birmingham meetup, like the difference between struggle and suffering. Like, people and when we talk about mental health, like, I don't fully expect people to be happy all the time. I'm certainly not. But I recognize that it's my choice on whether or not I suffer through my struggle, because struggle and suffer are two different things. And so the fact that he commented on this and that he's aware of it and acknowledged it is awesome. That's a huge step ahead. But if I was mentoring him, a tactical thing that, again, I'm not supposed to be someone's therapist, so we're talking at some of these higher level thoughts here. But like, what I would do is go back to tactical. What are some tactical things I can do to potentially help him start moving in the right direction? And whether or not it's a morning vision exercise or a morning journal or whatever, I think it really is just take pen to paper and acknowledge the timeline in which you've accomplished things. And if you acknowledge what your next goal is and you have trouble acknowledging when you reach goals, then you need to make a promise to yourself that when I reach this next goal or when I reach this next thing, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. That might be gifting yourself something. I'm not a gifter to anyone or myself, but maybe you want something. Maybe you want a new pair of shoes. So cool. Gift yourself that. That is a physical representation of you and I'm doing air quotes here, crossing the finish line. You've accomplished this goal. So you actually had to pause, and it may take you 10 minutes to buy those shoes, but you're going to wear those shoes. And so hopefully that gives you a visual representation. Or you just put a picture on the damn wall of you holding the damn golf trophy because you won the country club golf tournament this year. And so you see that picture, and that is a visual representation of that. I have pictures of my kids in my office. They're right next to my computer, right? So it's a very humbling thing to look at my kids. And I'm looking at a picture now with me and my daughter standing outside the building that I'm in, and she's holding a Ken doll and a Barbie doll. And that takes me back to the day where I picked her up from school early and literally brought her dolls with me, and we played Barbies downtown. And people walk downtown. So imagine a 30-some-year-old man playing Barbies on the Old Town Walking Mall, right? Like, that moment reminds me that the shit that I'm dealing with right now, it doesn't matter. And you called it the game, right? Like, this is the game of life. This is the game of us as men and women trying to progress towards goals. And the game is fun. Like, the game is cool. The game's not my definition, but I can pause the game for a moment to recognize that my daughter's more important, my son's more important. But man, that's my brain dump. I think it was a really interesting comment. I think it was a really interesting comment from him. I'll send him this episode when it publishes. Hopefully it helps a little bit, but acknowledge your wins, recognize there's no finish line, recognize you're not the only one. Jeff, anything else?
Two things. I had to laugh my ass off when you said your kids don't care how much money you have. And I was going to say your kids just aren't old enough yet, because my kids ask me every day how much money I have. And, and we make it crystal clear that none of it's theirs. I'm going to take it with me.
That's actually pause. That's actually really interesting, because I'm thinking down the line on when I teach my kids about infinite banking.
Yeah.
And it doesn't elude me that once they learn what life insurance is and what death benefit is, it may, if I don't raise my kids the right way, it may cause an issue for me in the future. And I certainly won't be telling my daughter and son's future girlfriends and boyfriends that our family practices infinite banking. But now, hey, look, it's out into the universe. So there's a hefty death benefit on my life. And I'm going to be very picky about who my children bring into our family tree, for sure.
Yeah, as you should be. The thing I was going to say about the gentleman commenting, though, is that, like, if I was to rewind my life 10 or 12 years, I think that when I was sitting there feeling those same feelings of frustration, I didn't know what I wanted. And so anything with like when I keep saying superficial stuff, like, did you want a car? Did you want something like that? Like, I would try to do a vision exercise if I were him, and really understand what that is. Because I think when I first started doing vision exercises, I used to look at those visions and be like, what the fuck is that? Like, why do I want that stuff? And like, when you do your first vision exercise, you need to also follow it up with like the 7 levels of like why, or the 7 layers of why, and ask yourself why you want those things, and what do they mean to you, and keep drilling down on that, because he's clearly doing some introspection on trying to understand himself better. I would try to get clear on like what your vision is, and like, and make sure that that's not superficial as well. And like, because when I was younger, it was always like silly stuff. Like, I want to make this amount of money, and I want to have this amount of wealth. Like, I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 40 or whatever. Did that. I wanted to do other stuff that had to do with personal income and stuff like that. And when I did it, there was no why to it. And like, so when I've missed the mark on things or been frustrated on things, it was always because I didn't have the right intentions behind what I was trying to do. And I never really got clear on that stuff. And so if I was struggling with that in my life again, and even when I do to this day, like, because I still get frustrated about shit like that. Like, I think we all do at some point in time, but like, it's important to understand like where you're going and like what's important to you, and also letting go of all of that baggage of like where you think you need to be, because you set this life up when you were 16 years old of, this is what I was going to be and do and have. And like, I think as you grow and evolve, that changes fucking immensely. And like, so what is truly important to you today in your life, and what's truly important to you, like with what you want out of the next 3 to 5 years or whatever. And that, I think, changes things to where you can have more contentment with the process. And if you can get talented at writing a granular vision, and you can stake it in the ground for, like, we do 1,000 days in the group, like set a date 1,000 days from today and stick a stake in the ground, and understand that that's where you're going. That makes the process a lot easier. If you've got a big why behind the vision that you're doing, and then you have confidence to support it, it makes it so easy, because then you don't worry about the win. What I mean is WHEN, the when it occurs. Okay. Like it will come at the time it's supposed to come. But like if you're clear on where you're going, you're going to get that. And I'll have a funny story to support that, because we're moving right now. We're clearing out our house. My wife, we were the only two in our house yesterday. Everybody else was gone. All the kids were gone and shit. And she was digging through all these books we had and pulled out a notepad or a journal or something that was hers. And it had June 10th, 2023 as the date for 1,000-day vision. And she had written it, and it was, we were RVing and doing all this other shit. And almost every single thing on that vision has it. And it was that we were RVing full time with our family, homeschooling, and ran a big real estate portfolio. We had a different RV than the vision dictated. And there were some other nuances that were changed.
Sure.
But when we looked at it and went down the entire list, we're doing everything now.
Yeah. I love that.
And so to me, like, that's how you do it. And that's what encourages you to keep on going and keep on winning, and understand that this is just a constant evolution. Like, we're RVing now, but like, what if I want a fucking mountain house in 5 years? Then I write it down, we change our direction, and we start moving the barge, like, turn the barge slowly but surely in that direction. And at some point I'll pick up a fucking journal, and that thing will be full, and we'll have lived that out.
Yeah. I think that's one thing. I want to wrap up the episode, but that's going to be it for another episode. Is like you said, turn the barge, right? I think so many people are trying to turn jet skis. They think this game of life is we can turn right on, you can make a decision that changes your life on a dime, for sure. But as me and my wife have so far this year, we've made a lot of big changes. And one thing that I'm going back to struggle versus suffer. One thing I struggle with is, now I have to be more patient than I have been to generate something new from scratch to get to the goal that we've set for this new thing. And so that's one thing, is I gotta recognize that it's a barge that we've turned. Yeah. We made a decision on a jet ski, which we support and believe in. But the goal is like turning the barge. We're gonna, we have an idea on this goal for 2 years, but it may take 2.5, it may take 3, it may take 4, but we understand the task that it's going to take to get there. We're human, so we may not fully understand the timeline. Hell, we may hit the goal in a year. And it's like, oh shit, yeah, kudos. Let's do a double steak dinner for the night instead of one steak. So, man, I appreciate those insights. I'm gonna send this episode to that gentleman, and hopefully it adds value to his life.
Yeah. The other thing is, I was a constant instant gratification guy, and so I always thought that it would take way less time to achieve all my goals. And so I was always questioning myself and saying, I should be further along. I should be. And like,
well, the tough thing is, go ahead, finish that thought. Sorry.
That's a recipe for frustration and fucking stress.
Well, I think especially for some people, like, maybe this isn't for you, but for me, is like when you go from being an hourly employee or something where you do work and get paid, that's instant gratification. Well, in the shit that we do, yeah, there's some things we do where we get paid right away, but most of the things that are on the journey to wealth building, it's delayed. You're that second cookie eater. Like, you're the delayed cookie eater on that timeline. And sometimes you can get a little impatient waiting for that cookie to arrive. So I felt that comment for sure, because that's definitely something that I, again, have to work through as well as we go through these new endeavors.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm looking forward to your journey.
Let's go.
All right, guys. Well, join us on the Tactical Empire community. DM us on Instagram if you want to talk to us, ask us any questions. We are here for you. Have a great day. Kick ass this week and stack your wins. Send them to us. Thank you.